Western Ag Network on the road at the 68th Annual Montana Grain Growers Association Annual Convention, brought to you by Torgerson's. Hello everyone and welcome back to On the Road with the Western Ag Network, where we are in Great Falls, Montana at the Montana Grain Growers Association's 68th Annual Convention. And we have producers from across the state and even the nation here this week learning about the latest and greatest innovations in the farming business. And we also have national leaders attending this year's event, talking with producers and discussing those important issues that are impacting producers out in the countryside. And one of those is Mr. Brent joining us here today, president of the National Association of Wheat Growers. You're a producer out there in Oregon, but Brent, as we're out here, what's it like just talking with these producers here in Great Falls, Montana this week?
Oh, it's been fantastic. A lot of innovative farmers in Montana, just like you'd expect. Kind of find that in wheat producers every state. Each state has their own unique set of problems, but this convention here is just phenomenal. Made a lot of new friends already. Hooked up with a lot of old friends. It's just been a good time. I'm glad I'm here.
Well, and you've had the opportunity, though, to travel the nation for years, serving on the board with the National Association of Wheat Growers and here as president. What was the take this year in terms of what producers were feeling after this year's harvest and maybe this year's winter wheat planting? What was that overall feel that you got from them nationwide?
Oh, kind of a mixed bag, because we had a lot of drought in the Great Plains, and we had people that harvested virtually nothing. Other areas of the nation had a great crop, so there was something for everybody, and it was very disappointing for those that had a wipeout with the drought, but thankfully that we've got a good farm safety net with the crop insurance program and things like that in place, so that in the gravest extreme, a farmer is not wiped out, and that they can be covered and get to where they can live to fight another day, or in this case, live to farm another year. So that kind of leads into what we're after in the Farm Bill. We've got to continue to improve and strengthen the farm safety net, because Mother Nature seldom takes out, just a farm. She works on taking out whole communities, whole counties, sometimes even a whole state. So we've got to make sure that we strengthen and improve what we've got in terms of crop insurance. We're also working toward getting the reference price through the FSA program strengthened. It hasn't had an improvement since, I believe, 01, 02, along in there. So cost of living has eaten it up pretty good. So yeah, it's challenging with the things we've seen in Congress and the speaker issue and things that I never thought I would witness happen. It's always a challenge, always a learning curve, and being asked to be president of this organization is a very humbling and very rewarding experience.
Well, and as you mentioned, being a voice for all those producers out in the countryside and serving as president is key to advance the future of the industry. For our friends that are tuning in, listening, or watching our conversation today, whether they're an experienced producer or getting just a brand new start in the grain business, I guess what's a message you have for them about being involved in organizations like the Montana Grain Growers, their prospective state associations, and the National Association of Wheat Growers?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. The answer to me is get involved and stay involved. The common misconception is when you go to either Helena or to Washington, D.C. or Salem in Oregon is that you'll hit a deaf ear. There are many of them that are willing to hear what we have to say. And the more of us that show up, the stronger our message, and the more it resonates and the more traction we get. So the bigger level of involvement that we can bring to the Hill, the better the result's going to be. And especially true with getting very passionate about getting the younger generation involved, because as I hit the twilight of my career, I'm fortunate that I have a next generation already taking over for me. And for those that are a next generation getting involved, your future's in your hands. And I would ask the next generation to lead by example. People like me need to become institutional knowledge, but the next generation, it's time for them to pick up the torch and be the voice of the industry starting yet today.
Very, very well said. Well, thank you so much for joining us here today. And,
Well, it's my pleasure.
And enjoy the rest of our trade show and convention this
Oh,
week.
this is awesome.
Well, as we mentioned, we are here this week at the Montana Grain Growers Convention and Trade Show. Our coverage is brought to you by our friends at Torgerson's. You can see some of their great equipment right behind us here. We're going to take a quick break and hear from Torgerson's right here from the Montana Grain Growers Convention in Great Falls, Montana.
Even when you have to weather the storm, even when the unexpected happens, even when the local environment slows things down, we will get you what you need when you need it. We are committed to getting you back in the seat, back to work, back to what matters. At Torgerson's Equipment, we know what matters most: community, family, working every day to make your day more productive.
Welcome back again as we continue our coverage today from the 68th Annual Montana Grain Growers Association's annual convention here in Great Falls. Again, just a big shout out of thanks to our friends at Torgerson's Equipment. Of course, whether it's new or used equipment, parts or service, be sure to check out one of their many locations across Montana and Wyoming, or you can jump online and visit them at torgersons.biz. Well, this year's convention, for the second year in a row, is held in partnership with the Friends from the Northern Pulse Growers Association and PNW Canola Association. And joining us now from the PNW Canola Association is their president, Dale Flikkema, out of Bozeman, Montana. And Dale, you know, we've talked to wheat growers now, we've talked to pulse growers, and now it's a chance to talk to you about this growing interest with canola acres. You know, you're raising a lot of different crops down there in the Gallatin Valley here in Montana. What is so appealing and interesting for you to jump into the canola market?
Well, from a grower's perspective, the canola, if you want to start talking about rotating some of your crops and rotating in and out of, if you want to call it out of the wheat barley cycle, canola fits perfectly for that because A1, you don't really have to buy any new equipment. It's pretty much what you have will work for the canola, so there's not a huge investment in it from the farm side. And the other thing that canola's got is just, we can start talking about Roundup Ready, or we can Liberty Link, or we can go beyond. So we have a great, if you want to call it, chemistry tool set to go after some of these resistant weeds.
Well, it also seems, I mean, whether it's here in Montana or across the entire Pacific Northwest, more and more growers are getting interested because we're seeing more canola acres out there in the countryside, aren't we?
Yes, yep, absolutely. And some of that is market driven. And so we've also, I mean, new regulatory things have come down, if you want to call it, opened up for the canola market. I mean, first of all, we can talk about the omega-3 contracts that are coming out. Great opportunity for growers that can take out all the market risk, different chemistry opportunities. And it seems to me, when I talk to the omega-3 folks at New Seed, it's like there's a never-ending demand for that product. The other side of the canola thing that's really making it grow is the renewable fuel standards. The canola vegetable market, oil market's going to take a big share of that opportunity. So that's going to be another great area, if you want to call it. I would almost call it an explosion in the ability or in the market for canola.
Well, in addition to the growing interest, you know, from growers that we've talked to here at this convention, we're also hearing from some of the industry organizations out there and those that provide the research, those that provide the goods and services for farmers like you. They too are showing great interest and say, you know, this canola thing isn't going away. It's only going to continue to grow.
Absolutely. I mean, everything I'm hearing, everything I'm seeing is that the canola market is just going to continue to demand and more product.
Now, in addition to being the president of the PNW Canola Association, you also have a seat on the U.S. Canola Association's board. What are some of the things on the national level you folks are visiting about?
Well, A1 regulations, of course, with canola being shipped off coast, right? So we're always concerned about those issues. We're concerned about the new farm bill, right? We're very concerned about the new EPA ruling on chemistry, so we want to have our focus on that ball too. Um, and then the renewable fuel standards. I mean, we work very hard with the EPA to get canola into that consideration and how it fits in their calculations and how they talked about how they calculate how much carbon is actually pulled in and out using canola oil as in part of the renewable fuels systems.
Last question, and I'll let you out of the hot seat, Dale, but I mean, how important is it too to have a convention like this and meet in partnership with other farmers, other wheat and barley growers, other pulse growers, and really have that collaborative team spirit about, moving the whole farming industry forward?
Okay, well, how do I say that? Um, as our farms start to diversifying, we've been really monoculture minded for a long time, right? And we can only do wheat or we can only do barley. But now, as if you want to call it, our farms are really more diversifying. We're adding pulses, we're adding canola, we're adding wheat and barley. All these things come together and we're getting a synergy from those crops, right? And when we meet together as farmers and we talk about our different strategies, that synergy happens here too. And we can take just little things that make big differences at the farm.
Very well said. Hey, I'll let you out of the seat. Again, we've been visiting with Dale Flikkema, the president of the PNW Canola Association from Bozeman, Montana. Just one of the many industry leaders here in Great Falls this week here at the Montana Grain Growers Association's annual convention. And speaking of industry leaders, stay with us because coming up next, our network's Lane Nordland will sit down and visit with one of the industry leaders in the pulse industry atmosphere, Mr. Paul Canning from Flaxville.
As we come back here from the 68th Montana Grain Growers Association Convention featuring the PNW Canola Association and Northern Pulse Growers Association, our coverage this week is brought to you by our friends at Torgerson's. For more information, visit Torgerson's online or one of their multiple stores out across Montana and Wyoming. Well, as we mentioned, this year's event for the second year is featuring not only wheat and barley producers, but those producers growing canola and pulse crops across Montana. And joining us here today is a face and voice familiar to many out across the countryside. We've had him on the Western Ag Network programs a few times. Mr. Paul Canning joining us here today. You're on that Montana Pulse Crop Committee. You're very active on the national stage when it comes to the pulse industry. I guess, how are things going as we gather here at the end of November 2023 for a producer from your neck of the woods here today?
Hey, this is great. You talked about producers who grow this and grow that commodity, but it's all the same people, right? So it's a great opportunity for a producer to come in here and talk about everything that they're doing in their rotation, whether it be an oilseed or a pulse crop or a grain crop. So it's an absolutely fantastic event that's going on. Things are great here. We're learning a lot. We're getting to rub shoulders with people we haven't seen, friends we haven't seen for the last year. So things are going great. Yeah.
Now, Paul, as we mentioned, these different crops that so many of the same producers are growing, we mentioned pulse crops. Maybe for our viewers out there that they're like, what is pulse crop? I know in Latin it means thick pea soup, pretty much is that Latin term, but what is a pulse crop and when did you start growing them?
Yeah. So pulses are chickpeas, lentils, and dry peas. And they are absolutely taking off across Montana for the last 10 years. They've really transformed agriculture. I started farming 11 years ago and I started growing them right then and there. But those are the three major commodities. Montana is the major producer of each one of those in the nation. And we've got a lot of great growers here who are great stewards of this new tool we have.
Now, you mentioned, obviously, we're here, all these different crops, all these different tools to help producers be profitable, but also diversify that land a little bit to put more back into the land when it comes to land health as well, part of that conversation. But for you, how important is it to have these three different groups come together for this meeting for the second year in a row?
Well, like I said, we're sharing information that, that may affect our canola crop, but it's also going to affect our wheat crop the next year and the yellow pea crop that'll be 2 years down the road after that. It's a fantastic event. It's been great education, great opportunity to learn what's coming down the pike, whether it be policy or breeding improvements or market development or whatever it may be. The full spectrum of resources are right here.
Now, obviously, we've had a lot of challenges in agriculture. COVID-19 impacted exports, production, movement of commodities as well. And we've also seen some challenges in some of those key export markets for pulses. India comes to mind, but what does that look like on the global front when it comes to those export markets for these pulse crops?
Well, so it's actually been pretty good news here for the last year. We were having great difficulty in the ports on the West Coast getting our products shipped out. A lot of that has been alleviated, and those containers are leaving the port like they should be. And then the great news that came during the summer was that India dropped that retaliatory tariff that was against U.S. pulses, and it's been great news for us. Farmers really never win when there's a trade war going on. And so it's great for all that to disappear. And now we're on a level playing field with everybody else, with Canada, with Australia, with, the EU, all these other places that are producing it. Now we're on a level field with them. And India drives the market, right? So the world driver of demand and market prices, now we get to go play in that market again.
Now, Paul, I know you're not only active here in the state of Montana, but on the national level. And did I hear you right? You're going to become chairman of the U.S. Dry Pea and Lentil Council here this summer?
It depends. If I don't screw up, I think, yeah. No, yeah. So I'm the vice chairman, and that ends in June. And then in June, I'll be chairman for a couple of years. Great opportunity to advocate for Montana growers and Montana pulses. Looking forward to it. It'll be a 2-year opportunity for me, and it's not just for me, right? It's for Montana. So,
and with that, serving in the leadership and working with other producers, I guess, where do you want to see the pulse community go over the next 2 years and in the long term through this role, but also just to maybe expand the impact that the crop has, not only here in the northern states, but globally as well?
Right. Yeah. So I'll tell you, we are focusing and I'm gonna push more on this is to continue to drive domestic demand and utilization of this. There's been great innovations in food technology, in protein technology, and these pulse crops are in very high demand because of the great protein that they provide. But we don't have a good system out there to really measure like how much is that improving and increasing, and what are our goals? Like if we're at level A today, what do we want to be at in 10 or 15 years? And so that's really going to be my focus is, obviously 65% of this goes overseas, but we need to really work on what's going on in the U.S. With demand and consumption. What are the dietary guidelines? What are the innovation restrictions that we need to work on, barriers, whether it's regulatory or investments or whatever? Those are the things I'm going to be looking at.
And I know we've discussed this in the past, but a lot of cattle producers probably watching this, and they're promoting their beef protein, but also the pulse community is excited about alternative proteins such as burgers, imitation burgers that contain pulses. I guess, what is that atmosphere like for a producer like yourself? Just give that perspective to our livestock producers.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I'll tell you that I have grown yellow peas that got turned into a imitation burger. I guess my perspective on that is that the consumer sets the market, right? Look, the beef that gets produced here is absolutely world-class great, and that's what's in my freezer. But I know that there are certain aspects of our society that's looking for something different. And so if we can also provide that and cover that market demand also, I think it's a win-win for us, right? There's also some other things going on with blending, right? So they may blend some U.S. beef with some pulse protein to certain markets also. So it's a great opportunity, actually. Yeah, I mean, we can cover all aspects of the protein demand right here from Montana.
Well, as we continue our coverage from here at the 68th Annual Montana Grain Growers Association's annual convention here in Great Falls, and as we've been mentioning for the second year in a row in partnership with the Northern Pulse Growers Association and PNW Canola Association. Always a great opportunity to catch up with ag leaders from near and far and talk about Montana's and really America's most essential industry, agriculture. Now, joining us from that Fairfield country as one of those leaders in Great Falls this week, Mitch Konen. And Mitch, over the years, you and I've done a lot of these interviews. Of course, you're a past president of the Montana Grain Growers Association, but now you're the vice president of the National Barley Growers Association. Talk about why you threw your hat into this officer team and why you're so excited about it.
Well, being I'm a barley producer out at Fairfield on the Greenfield bench there, and I got started with grain growers and started working into policy, and I wanted to make sure barley got the recognition that it needs, and it's just turned into a bucket list that I wanted to chase after, and that was that national position. And last summer I got elected in as vice president.
Well, it's pretty cool to have another leader from Big Sky Country on the national front, and I know you're really looking forward to it, and you really are super excited about it. You know, farm policy kind of runs through your blood now as a past leader of the Montana Grain Growers Association. Here in Great Falls at this convention, obviously one of the big topics, the new Farm Bill.
Yeah, I mean, we're always looking at that and making sure that all of the policies are lining up in favor of the farmers, and making sure our safety net is accounted for. Crop insurance is another big one that we're always looking at, and trying to make them programs better and make sure that everybody is covered under everything.
How encouraging is it, Mitch, when you come back to the state convention like this week here in Great Falls during MGGA's annual convention? New venue, an exciting new atmosphere, and really there's some new faces out there, which means, you know, here on the state level, which usually translates into a national level too, there's a lot of interest in folks wanting to get more involved.
Boy, I mean, this is turning out to be a good show. I think it was a good change coming to a new venue. I've seen a lot of folks that I haven't seen in quite a few years, so they wanted to come check it out. Encourage everybody else to come check it out. Come support us here at Montana Grain Growers and see what we're offering here. A lot of good education, and in the next day or two, we'll start talking about policy as well, and we need everybody's input on it.
Well, we talked about the Farm Bill, but of course another big policy issue, whether you're a wheat grower or a pulse grower, canola grower, or a barley grower, is the importance of trade. And boy, that couldn't ring more true in a barley growing state like Montana.
And it is, you know, barley is a public sector crop, what they classify as a public sector crop, and it's used for feed, it's used for food, it's used for beer, it's used for distillers as well. And so, I mean, we're covering the whole gamut of everything on that farm. So it's a crop that is we need to have out there for everybody, just to make sure we have food security within the country.
What's it like, you know, I mean, obviously being, you know, a past leader of the grain growers and now an officer of the National Barley Growers Association, obviously dealing with, you know, different farm organizations, but you were telling me before we started this interview, now you get to, you know, have some interaction with the brewers and the distillers, not just here in Montana, but across America and other barley from, you know, barley producing states, but also wherever they're serving this, you know, product made from barley.
And that's exactly right. I mean, it's the crop and demand for those kind of products has been increasing over time. So we're making sure we supply a quality product for them to use in the malting industry. And malting is not just, malted barley is not just for beer or distilling. It goes into a lot of foods as well. and it goes into dog food and a lot into animal feeds as well. So we're running the whole industry, trying to take care of the whole industry. So.
Right, and you know, a few years ago there was an issue regarding aluminum and aluminum cans, and that is certainly top of mind at the National Barley Growers Association. You know, making sure we have something to put the beer that is made from barley into eventually.
Yeah, and that's right. I mean, it's trade negotiations, whether aluminum, trying to get it into the country, import and export trade issues are always playing those games, you know, and it creates a supply loss somewhere and whatnot. So we're always in front of that too.
Well, it's been a lot of fun to visit with you, and it's been a lot of fun to follow your career in leadership over all these years. Of course, a farmer still in that Fairfield country, a past president of the Montana Grain Growers Association, and now the vice president of the National Barley Growers Association. And Mitch was telling me in about a year and a half he'll actually assume that president's role, and very much appreciative of his efforts and their entire officer team and all the members out there for what they do every single day on behalf of barley growers, not just from here in Montana, but across America. And you can always find out more about what the National Barley Growers Association is doing by visiting them at national-barley.com.
As we continue our conversations on the road this week from the Montana Grain Growers Annual Convention, we've mentioned it several times that our coverage has been brought to you by our friends at Torgerson's Equipment. And we are seeing quite a lot of equipment here at this year's trade show, in particular this big red beast behind us here this week. So it's really great to see this new venue at the Montana Grain Growers Convention. And of course, Torgerson's has this case implement on display behind us, and joining us here is Cheyne Bowen. And Cheyne, what's it like having this trade show where you can bring not only just a booth, but equipment just like this in here to showcase to all the producers from Montana?
Yeah, it changes the atmosphere from the years past, I think. You know, whatever color's sitting in here, you know, we won't talk about these other colors, but it's just cool to have them here, you know, customers and farmers and producers just being able to talk about what they're doing and also be sitting here, and maybe what they're dreaming about is right here too. So it just adds a unique atmosphere, I think. And then we get to display something new.
Yeah. Well, and as we look at that, what are some of those newer innovations that are on the horizon, like this piece of equipment that you've been talking with producers here, not just at the Grain Growers Convention, but out in the countryside here this summer, fall, and moving into the winter time?
Yeah. Oh, there's a long list, you know, from these newer quad tracks. This is a new model here, and it's got new monitors in it, new interior, different horsepower. So now we have a even higher horsepower quad that goes up to 715 horse. So you can move a lot of dirt or pull a lot of drill behind you, which drills are another thing. You know, the technology on these drills is getting pretty impressive. We're getting sectional control, curve compensation. We got scales on them. You can adjust them on the fly, your depth, and depending on what your conditions are. Combines, we got a new combine coming out here soon, and a new updated series. So there's a lot going on as far as technology and the updates.
So what are some of the tips and advice you're giving with producers that are walking by asking questions as we look at rounding out 2024? What are some of the key things you're trying to help producers do as they especially look at that kind of the end of the year bookkeeping and looking towards next year's crop as well?
Yeah, I think one thing we're talking with producers about is talking with us. Like, we're not going to be pushy. It's better to get the conversation started now than December 26th. You know, we can look at options, whether it's used, new, on order, or, you know, we can get creative with interest rates, which is a big topic right now. So the more time we have and the more time we have to discuss something, we can do a better job for somebody.
And overall, I guess, what are you looking forward to in 2024 from the crew there at Torgerson's?
Oh, I think we're looking forward to just growing more as a team. Purchased us some new stores over the last few years, getting new faces, which has caused us to continue to grow because they're used to doing things one way and we're used to doing it a different. It's really kind of been iron sharpening iron, there's some cool things on the horizon for us, I think, as a team and as a company.
And how many locations are there now out across Montana and Wyoming?
14.
14
I believe.
total.
Yeah, 2 in Wyoming.
Well, again, we want to thank you, Cheyne, for joining us here today and talking more about just all the opportunities that Torgerson's equipment is providing producers out in the countryside, not only on the farming end, but the livestock end too. Make sure and stop by one of those many Torgerson's locations out near you here today. And a big thank you to them for helping sponsor all of our coverage here from the Montana Grain Growers Convention. Western Ag Network on the road at the 68th Annual Montana
Sorry,
Grain Growers Association Annual Convention, brought to you by Torgerson's.